Either she homeless or she got problems. That's the only reason why she run to a black man.
I like him already.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on!
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
Producer, director, writer. He is the ultimate filmmaker and bona fide foodie. You're listening to The Quidditas Factor with Michael J. Arbouet.
Bonjour, greetings, hello, and welcome to another episode of The Quidditas Factor. I am your host, Michael J. Arbouet. Every week I ask you what that word Quidditas means. Adriana, please give them the definition.
Quidditas, Latin, the whatness of a thing, the essential nature of something, the quality that makes a thing what it is.
Yes, Quidditas is the whatness of an essence or thing or person. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking about a person who's created their own future. You know, the late Steve Jobs once said, "Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition." That is such a great quote. And the person I'm talking about, the person that has done this, her name is Debra Markowitz. And the reason why I've interviewed her today is because, you know, like in life, a lot of times we're not sure what exactly we want to do. You know, we go to school, we go to college, we study stuff, but we don't have a clear path. You know, one of the reasons why I created this show is because people are looking for answers and they're trying to find a path or a way. And so I'm hoping that in some way, when you listen to these podcasts, that you get inspired to get up and do something. You know, don't wait for things to happen. Create them. Do them. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. The most reliable way to predict the future basically is really to create it. Change the law of life. The future is not some place we're going to, but one we are creating. You know, there's another quote I love by George Bernard Shaw, and that quote is, "Life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself." So the next time you're not sure about what you want to do with your life, create, do something. You know, life is about creating. It's not about going to a dead-end job day after day and not wondering what's going to happen, and you're going to hope you're going to win lottery and, you know, live the lap of luxury. Most of the people that have a great life, they go out and get it. They go out and live their life. They go out and create it. And that's what Debra Markowitz has done. So let us talk to Debra Markowitz. Let's start the show off this way, Debbie. Normally I start the show by asking, you know, what do you want to be when you're 8 or 9 years old? But instead, why don't you tell us who Debra Markowitz is?
Okay, well, my name is Debra Markowitz, and I am the Nassau County Film Commissioner, position that I created and have held through 4 administrations. Read that, 32 years. I also am one of the founders and co-directors of LIFE, which is the Long Island International Film Expo. I also am a writer and director. I did have casting director and producer on the edge of that, but as of yesterday, I've dropped that off. I want to concentrate on my writing and my directing.
You know what, Debbie, I changed my mind. After hearing all that, let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to 18-year-old Debra Markowitz. Tell the audience what you wanted to do back then.
I think that I knew more when I was younger than I did when I was older. When I was younger, around 7 or 8, I remember my parents would bring their friends over and I would hang out with their kids and I would kind of make up little stories and basically direct them, though I didn't know what I was doing. It's like, okay, you're going to go there and you're going to say this and this is who you're going to be. And I didn't realize it was directing and I didn't realize it was something that I could do. And then, you know, life kind of beats the crap out of you as you're growing up. And then you try and figure, gee, you're 18, you've got to get out of your parents' house to keep your sanity. And what are you going to do to be able to pay the bills? And so I've had probably about 30 jobs until I finally got involved with the Film Commission. And through the Film Commission, that's when I got involved with the film festival and I started watching these independent films and I fell in love with so many of them. And then when somebody asked me to get some celebrities for them for a movie, after I did a couple of names, they asked me if I would be a casting director. And I said, well, I've never done it before, but there's a lot of things I haven't done before, and I always figured it out. So I did that, ended up producing it. And then after 2 movies, I ended up directing my own and kind of haven't turned around. But I always knew since I was little. I wrote my first book when I was 6 years old. So I knew I was a writer, but I didn't write for a long time. But I always had in the back of my mind that that's what I would do. And it actually wasn't until I was probably in my 30s where I was in danger of losing my job, because it's not unusual for people to replace the film commissioners every time the administrations change. So I figured, okay, I might be losing my job. Maybe I'll be a paralegal because I also wanted to be a lawyer always. And I figured, all right, well, law school is probably over for me, but I can do a paralegal. I got 6 months till the class starts. But if I do that, I'll never write. So I have 6 months to write. And if I don't, then I give up the dream. And I wrote a novel in those 6 months. And then I realized that that's what I was going to do. And in 2 years, I wrote 2 more. So I'm going to say writer. I must have always known writer.
Writing is extremely difficult. I know I wrote a novel and it took me over 1.5 years to do that. And you wrote your first one in 6 months. So tell me a little about that first book and the books after that.
Okay. Well, first of all, it's a trilogy. And it started out with Naked in the Rain. And I was on vacation in Montauk, which is where the book takes place. And I always loved it out there because we used to have this, belong to this trailer park basically in the summer, the family. And I just loved it there because it was so quiet and we were on a nature preserve. So they couldn't really build a lot around us. And so I would love to walk there and run there. And I would love to just sit in the dunes. And I sat there one day and I said, okay, if the character lived out here, why would she live out here? And so I kind of came up with the character of Nora, who's the protagonist, and just the things that she went through in her life, and to make her be somebody who would one day live by herself away from everybody else. And so I kind of built up this whole story, and it's bits and pieces from everything in your life, and just everything. It's none of it's really real, but it's I guess it's metaphoric in a way, because I was in a fairly bad marriage at the time, and so it's a very brutal novel. It's not true, but it gets out that feeling, and so that's why I wrote that. And after I wrote Naked in the Rain, there's a short section in it where the character, her friend, convinces her to go to a psychic to try and get some advice, and I thought about the things that the psychic had told her, and I went, oh, that'd make a really cool story. So I started researching. It was about the character's past life. And so I started researching the Civil War, and I just started falling more and more in love with this character. And so I wrote Sarah and Caleb, which is the second book, is actually a prequel to the first book. And I just fell in love with everything about it. And then and it's actually in some parts more brutal than the first one, but it's what happened back then. It's the kind of things that happened in the Civil War. And so I went to a couple of my friends who were historians, and I said, I just want to make sure I have this right, because it's really important to me this stuff be correct. And I got back, wow, and also yes, absolutely to a T, because things would happen on your property. I mean, you would go home. Some of the soldiers in the South would literally go home to their families and go back to fight, depending how close it was. So it was just a whole story based around Sarah and Caleb. And then after I wrote that, I would start getting emails from people who had read my books and said, but what happens? I'm like, all right, now I got to write a third one. So it took me a couple of years. And then I wrote Karmic Wind, which is the future life of these two characters. And it takes place in 2070. So that took me the longest to write. And it basically, I had to come up with the middle of the book and write it till the end, till I could go back and write the beginning. So that was really interesting to me. And I've started several others. I've written a couple of novels for other people. And the books, I had self-published them, but it helped me get other work. because people read them and went, wow, would you write this for me? I said, all right, well, you know my style, and if you're interested in it, then yeah, okay, I can do that. And then I started writing movies. After I had done 2 films for other people, I decided to write The Last Taxi Driver with Robert Classy in mind from Blue Bloods. And since then I've written, I don't even know, 15, 20 scripts, several for other people, some shorts. I just directed my first feature probably about 2 years ago, and it's finally coming through post because you know how expensive these things are. And I have a series called Couple of Guys, which I wrote, which is also coming through post at this point. So really, it's anything to do with writing. I love filmmaking. I'm trying to narrow my lane, as my entertainment attorney just told me. Pick 2 things and do them. You know, if you're going to be a writer-director, then that's what you got to do. So trying to focus on that now.
Tell me a little bit about your time working for Nassau County and how you created your own job. I find this story so inspiring.
So I started as a special assistant to the county executive, and I was able to do writing there. So I found that interesting. I wasn't crazy about politics in general. I loved the idea. I mean, it was fun. We worked with great people, and many I'm still friends with today. But it was just a constant, you know, it wasn't for me. There was a culture of kind of who can, you know, get over on who, and I wasn't really comfortable with it. So I looked around to see what else was available, and there was a department called Commerce and Industry. So I spoke to them. There was no film office at the time. They did like 2 or 3 permits a year. There really wasn't much of anything. So I put together a plan, and I went to the county executive, and I said that, you know what, I can get you a lot of press, and I can make us a lot of money if you'll let me do this. So he turned around and went, all right, you got 6 months, don't embarrass me. And then I built the office, and it just basically kept growing every year. So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that it could be different every day. You never knew what job was going to come in. You never knew what problem you were going to have to solve. So I really loved it. I'd say out of the 32 years I'm doing this, maybe there were 2 years altogether, if you put all the pieces together, I didn't like. But for the most part, I loved what I did because it was just always different. And it is still to today. Now we're reconfiguring what the film industry is going to be out here. So it's challenging, but you know, I always look forward to the challenges. So I didn't know at that point that I was ever going to get to writing, even though I knew I always wanted to. But the one good thing about being with the county for 32 years, you get days off. So if I wanted to make a movie, I'd just take a week's vacation. Instead of going somewhere, I'd make a movie. So it allowed me to do that, which was pretty wonderful. And then I had my daughter, and allowed me to do, you know, to be there really for every event that she had with school and whatnot. So that was a godsend.
Tell me, what's the one thing you wish you knew when you first started your career?
Well, the film office kind of unfolded pretty much how I thought it would. There's been tension here and there, but for the most part, I was able to mold that. So that wasn't a problem. I think that as far as my film career, I don't think anything's an accident. So that's hard to say. I think that I wish I would have learned more, but I learned by doing. You know, it's would I have gone to film school? I actually took drama my first year of college, and then realized I needed to make a living. You know, so I went into business administration, which actually helped me get this job. So that happened for a reason. I knew that I had gone originally to Nassau Community College, and the only reason I applied to Hofstra was because the job I had at the time would pay you, I think, a percentage depending on whatever your grades were. I said, okay, so if I get in, and I'd never been a good student, but if I can get into Hofstra, and if they're going to pay for it, I'd be crazy not to go. So it took me 8 years at night because I'd only take a couple of classes. But then I got a degree which allowed me to have the job I have now I would not have been able to have. So everything really led to something else, even though you don't realize it at the time. I don't know. I think to just believe it's always going to be okay, because it is. And I think that's something I'm just realizing now. No matter what happens, it's going to be okay. because whatever's supposed to happen is going to be what happens. The only thing you can do is push yourself forward. And you also have to realize that as long as you're taking a step ahead, you're doing the right thing. Because you can do all this positive thinking and whatever, but if you're not actually doing anything, you're not going to get anywhere. So it would always be to just go ahead. And I guess I kind of knew that without having the words for it. It's like, all right, I'll go to college, even if I'm miserable where I am, at least I know eventually I have a degree. I'm doing something towards my future. And that kind of pushed me through. You just have to know you're going to be okay. I wish I had known that in life. It's not necessarily just my career. But, I think people who have a lot of problems don't realize that it's really going to be okay. There's an opportunity at the end of any hardship.
Name 3 people who have been influential in your life.
I'm actually going to say one of them is my husband, who's also my business partner. And the reason why is whenever I'm nervous about something, he'll just come over and say, just do it. Just do it. So what's the problem? Then do something else. And my karate trainer, I had taken karate for a number of years, Joan Clem. I would talk to her too. She became a very good friend. And I'd say, well, I don't know if I have to do this, or I don't know how to do that, or I don't know whether to do this. And she'd do the same thing, pick one. I'm like, what if I'm wrong? She goes, pick another one. And those two, between John saying, well, how can we do this, and trying to help me figure it out. And he is one of the world's best teachers, because he can explain something to me in 10 minutes that I didn't learn all through school. And it just helps me make decisions. And then it was Joan. Oh my, there's so many, but I'm also going to say Lucas Hassel. And the reason I'm going to say Lucas is because I had written a feature, and I really didn't want to submit it to too many festivals, because I'm like, it's okay, it's pretty good, I don't know. And he said to me, don't downplay your talent. He goes, don't do that. He said, we can always get better. He goes, I'm getting better every day. And he's won awards everywhere. And so I thought about it and said, okay. And I ended up submitting it to about 15 film festivals, and I won almost every one of them. Does that mean anything? Not necessarily. You don't know who's reading it. You don't know what their tastes are. But you always have to learn. You always have to learn more. You always have to get better at your craft. But him saying that to me was just like, bing, it really helped. And then can I say 4?
Sure, yes,
can I give
course.
you a 4th one?
Yes.
Okay, I got to give you also Elias Plagianos, because he will always watch my work. He will always give me constructive feedback. He will sometimes just give me an idea that's one tiny little thing, and it changes the entire movie. So he's got a real good head on him for what's out there, who's looking for what you need to do. Do we always agree? No. And in the end, it's my final decision. But I feel like he knows what he's talking about, and I will get the best possible feedback from him. So I got to say those 4 people.
What advice would you give to someone who wanted to get started in this industry?
Okay, there's a few things. One thing I'm going to say is go with your gut. Learn, always learn. There's always more to learn. Go with your gut. If you do have some success, do not let your ego take control of things, because everything is subjective. Who likes your work here? There might be somebody there who hates it over there. I've learned as a filmmaker that when I show my projects to filmmakers and non-filmmakers, the non-filmmakers are going to like it more, because they're not looking at, well, why'd you use that angle? Well, why'd you do? And filmmakers do tend to do that. So I would say that take it with a grain of salt, listen to the work that's constructive, and see if it makes sense for you and your work. You may have a completely different idea, and it's your art to make. So it's basically going to be just go forward, learn as much as you can, get on other people's sets, and volunteer, to go get coffee if you have to, but watch what people are doing, learn what they're doing, watch videos, watch movies, watch TV. And I guess it's just also just kind of don't become a jerk, because it's easy to do that in this industry. I know when I win awards, it's just okay. I mean, it's fun and it's great, but it doesn't really determine what your work is all the time. So it's don't let it go to your head. I had a filmmaker who admire greatly, who for whatever reason had just kind of stopped talking to me for a while. And I was winning all kinds of awards, and I reached out to him for some reason. And he said to me, you know, that those pieces of plastics don't really mean that much. I'm like, oh, I know. I actually know that. I know we have to promote. I know we have. It's wonderful to have your work validated. It's a fun high for, you know, for a couple of days, and it's great. And I don't want to put down any film festivals because I know what they put in to make this happen. And I'm so thankful that they appreciate my work. But that doesn't mean a festival down the road is going to want anything to do with me. It's, you know, you can't get so ahead of yourself. So, well, I'm the best thing in the world. Why didn't they take my film? Because that's not what it's about, you know. There are a million reasons people will take your film. So don't get caught up in your ego. Don't get caught up in thinking you know more than somebody else. Now, you might know more than somebody else, but just don't think you're better than them, because you're not necessarily better than them.
Tell me about somebody who touched your heart and how they changed your life for the better.
Well, again, there's a few, and one of them, wow, I just remembered the story. There was a teacher I had in high school, an English teacher called Mrs. Bender, I believe her name was. And I was not a good student. She was my English teacher, and she had given us an assignment of either writing a prequel to a novel or a sequel to a novel and a few other things. And we had a bunch of novels we could pick. And I decided I was going to write a sequel to Of Mice and Men. And she's handing out all the papers. And again, I'm telling you, I'm an awful student. I can't sit there and just listen to somebody. And she's handing out all the papers, and I don't get mine. And so my friend who's sitting next to me goes, "What's your paper?" I'm like, "I don't know, maybe I failed." And she goes, "Well, I have to read to you one paper that's just very, very special." And he's looking at me, goes, "That can't be you, Markowitz." And I'm like, "No, I'm sure it's not me." Well, it was my paper. And I don't know if that so much touched my heart as really kind of touched my soul, like, wow, maybe I could be good at this, you know. So there's that. And then I have to also say John, my husband, who with 14 years now, and he believes in everything I do. He doesn't just yes me, he believes in everything I do. If I don't know how to do something, he'll say, "Okay, how can we figure that out?" And so he's kind of like a husband and all that other stuff, but also he's really a teacher. And he's also, no matter what happens in this world, my daughter got in a car accident, and he just left work. He was a teacher, and he said, "I got to go. There's a family emergency." It wasn't even a second thought. It wasn't even when, you know, we come first, you know, and his daughters as well. And that just amazed me, because I never had anyone there like that, you know, before. So it touches me every day. I'd go to work. Many years ago, I had started writing again, and I had gone to work, and I came home, and he had cleaned up my whole office and bought me a new computer monitor and a new keyboard, because he knew I needed to have, you know, whatever. And it was, I mean, things like that just touch me like almost every day, you know, the thoughtfulness that this man does for me. So I'm going to say John.
Mm-hmm. What's the best compliment you've ever received?
Okay, one that comes to mind is an entertainment attorney who I've known for decades. And I don't remember the context of this, but we were having a meeting of some sort, and he said to me that you have more integrity than anyone else I've ever met in this industry. And he's represented some actually fairly big people. And I was like, oh, wow. Oh, I have a better one. I was directing a movie called Chosen with Kathy Moriarty and written by Shari Umansky. And we're sitting at the table. Kathy had come out to work on wardrobe, and she wanted to ask questions about, you know, the script before we went into filming. And as we're sitting there, we realized that the person who was supposed to tell her on her end that we had changed the dates didn't tell her. So, you know, we're talking about filming in, like, you know, 2 days. She goes, "We're not shooting in 2 days, we're shooting in 3 days." I'm like, "No, didn't so-and-so tell you?" She goes, "No." I'm like, "Oh, so now I have to move." She's going away for another film. So I literally had to move everything. So I'm on the phone, and I'm on my laptop, and I'm making sure the DP's available, this person's available, everybody's available. And I looked up at everybody at the table staring at me. There's like 6 people. I'm like, what happened. And my friend, they said, "You didn't hear what Kathy said?" And I'm like, "No." And she said, "Everybody wants to work with you." She said, "Because you know what you're doing, you're the best at what you do, and you care about what you do." I'm like, "Oh, wow." And from Kathy Moriarty is just, she's the one who was up for an Academy Award, and I wasn't even listening, so it's not like she was saying it necessarily for my benefit, but that kind of made me feel like maybe I do know what I'm doing.
Tell me about a common myth that you'd like to debunk about your profession right now.
That I want to debunk? I'm going to say that it's easy, because it's not easy. If you do it because you love it, it might seem easy at times, but people are not seeing the aggravation in post and in pre-production, and have to go through the same things that we as independent filmmakers that don't have a ton of money need to do. We need to do all kinds of crazy stuff to make it all work, and it always does. It always does. But if you think this is easy and you think this is glamorous, it's really kind of not. You have to do it because there's nothing else that you can do. There's nothing else that you want to do. It's just a thing that you have to do. So people don't get that. It's not easy. You're not just watching. My feature is an hour and 54 minutes long, and we cut it down from 2.5 hours. When you do something as inexpensively as I did The Only Woman in the World, you just got to take your time. You're waiting on everybody's schedules. You're going to lose your makeup person 3 times because they picked up a higher paying job, or you have to, and you deal with it. So it took us 6 months to film it. So when something takes you 6 months to film, it's sort of like, I have a better idea. And so you write something else, and you just keep filming. And then at the end, you have an almost 2.5 hour monster, and you can't have a 2.5 hour film. So you have to start cutting and slicing and dicing. But it's not just watching that film once. I've probably watched the film 20 times just for editing. Now I'm going to watch it time after time in post for both the composition, as well as this color grading, as well as the post sound person. So I'm going to watch that film another at least 50 times before it's over. I don't want to see this film anymore. I don't want to see it anymore. I'm glad I did it. I think people are going to like it. But it's not like watching a 10 or 20 minute short that gets exhausting too. This is 2 hours every time I sit down with it. So it's not easy. It's hard work. You can always make something better. It just gets to the point where it's like, I'm done. I'm done with this right now, and then my editor's like, yay. But so I guess I'm just going to say it's not easy.
If you were to step into my shoes, is there something I should have asked you that I didn't?
If you had to give, and maybe I covered this, if you had to give advice to anyone in this world, what would it be? And I sort of said it before, and that's that everything's really going to be okay. Everything that happens for a reason. And you may not know the reason for it for years, and you may never know the reason for it. But I think, I have very spiritual beliefs, and I do believe that we've been here before, and I do believe we come back to learn lessons or to bring what we have to the world. And we all, I don't want to get all hokey, but we all have the divine in us. We're not, some people believe we're all loved with God, all loved by God, and we are. It's just different terminology, but I believe that we are the divine. I believe that we're given gifts that it's not our place to hold back. So if you're supposed to be a writer, then you better damn well be writing. And if you're supposed to be that counselor that's healing people, and you feel it's your passion, then that's what you need to be doing. And maybe you just or somebody who is in the lunch line at school, but you're smiling at these children have made their life better, then that's what you're here to do. So we're all here to do something. We're all equally important, even though it may not look that way. Some people just get better PR, but we're all here to do something really important. We all have value. And it's just getting rid of the voices in the back of our head, that basically say, hey, no, you can't do that. No, you're too this, you're too that, you're too, and just doing it anyway.
Here's a fun question for you. What actress would play you in a movie?
Who I really like, is I'm watching Dead to Me, and is her name Linda Cardinelli? Is that her name?
Oh, I think yes.
The one who plays Judy. When she's a little older or young, I think that she's pretty awesome, and I love her range. And I actually was saying I could see her playing Nora in Naked in the Rain when she's older, because Nora is, I believe, in her 40s. And Nora is very loosely based on me, very loosely. But I could see that, I could see that happening. So I'm going to say her only because I can't think of anybody else right now.
Okay, and one of the things that people don't realize is that some of our greatest successes come from our greatest failures. That being said, what is the biggest failure that led to your greatest success?
I'm going to say the breakdown of my previous marriage. I'm going to say probably that. Because I was in a very bad place. I was at the point where I literally had, by the end of being dragged through court for 4 years, that I literally had $35 left in my account. And I'm raising a daughter, and I still had my stepdaughter living with me at the time, because she had wanted to stay with me. And I never thought I'd be getting divorced again. And so even though the marriage had its issues, I just like, really? And I had to come to the point where I'd also gotten sick at some point after the divorce, and I realized that I didn't have anybody I could call. And it was, it was like, okay, so I could lose my house, and I don't have any money, and I just, maybe I'm just not meant to kind of be a married person. Maybe it's just my lot in life. Maybe I'm paying some karmic debt from being a horrible person. I don't know. And so I just remember sitting on the edge of my bed and crying my eyes out and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. From now on, I'm just going to live my life as a single person, and that's okay. And whatever I do, it's just going to be by myself, and that's okay. And I'll be able to do that. And then I sat down and I wrote a list, just in case, because I'm still somewhere in the back of my mind an optimist, of everything that I would want in a partner if I ever even tried again. And they would have to have all of these things, or I was not interested. And one of the things, and I wrote everything. I didn't write looks, because looks don't really matter. It's the person's soul that matters. And one of the things I had was, he'll take ballroom dancing with me. And then I crossed that off, because I figured, who the hell takes ballroom dancing? So a month later, I'm dating a couple of people, and I met John. And I met John through a dating site that I'd already gotten off weeks before. He somehow saw my picture. I somehow got an email from him, and I said, all right, well, he lives close by. He seems like a handy guy. He's smart, whatever, I'll meet him. And I took that chance, and it turned out to be, it's like the other marriage had to crash and burn so that I could meet the person I was supposed to be with. And because I was with him, it gave me the confidence, because he believed in me, to try to do the movie. And he'd be like, yeah, do it. I'll help. Whatever you need, we'll do it. It was kind of that I had to trust that I was going to be okay when I didn't see any way I could be okay. So and also when I'm in a lot of pain, I would do a lot of spiritual reading and do a lot of affirmations and just read things and watch things to try to make myself feel better. And that's when you learn the most. Because when you're really down and it's just like, that's it, you're on the floor. I mean, I didn't lose my house. Like John said to me, it's impossible for me to have been able to pay for my house, and yet I did it. Because when I had no money left in the bank, I'd get a writing job, like almost instantaneously, whenever something happened. So I learned to trust a lot then, because nothing that happened should have happened. I decided to be alone. I didn't know how I was going to pay for my home. And then all of a sudden everything just started, I made peace with it. And once I did that, everything started to turn around. Like I said, I don't want to lose my house in the divorce, because I don't want anybody to throw me out of my own home. If I lose it, then that's mine, but I don't want anybody to ever take my home away from me. And it was 15 years later, I still have it.
Debbie Markowitz, thank you so much for doing this interview with me. You have such an inspiring story. It really reminds me of that Jane Goodall quote that basically says, if you really want something and you really work hard and you take advantage of opportunities and you never give up, you will find a way. Follow your dreams. And that's exactly what you've done. Thank you so much for doing this show. Before I let you go, can you just take us out?
This is Debra Markowitz, and you're listening to the Quidditas Factor.
Thank you for listening. As you guys know, I am an avid reader and a foodie. I haven't been to a restaurant in a while during these strange and crazy times, so I figured I'd let you know about a book I just read that is absolutely phenomenal. It's a book by Adrian McKinty called The Chain, and it's based on those like chain letters that we used to get as kids, but it's been modernized, and it's really, really good. I don't want to give too much away. But if you're looking for something that's heart-stopping that you won't be able to put down or stop not listening if you're doing an Audible book, then this is the book for you. So check out The Chain by Adrian McKinty. Thank you for listening to the Quidditas Factor. I am Michael J. Arbouet. Before I let you guys go, please visit my website at www.mikearbouet.com. That's MikeArbouet.com. And please check out the Quidditas page and go to my shop and go to Arbor Artifacts and buy a t-shirt that will help keep the show going, as well as my wife's Etsy store. That is Poem Jewelry Design. She makes wonderful jewelry, so if you're looking for something for someone, please check that out. And also, if you want to become a patron, please, by all means, check out my Patreon page. Click on the button on the website and become a patron for like $1 a month or $5 a month. You really help the show going, and I'll give you some secret tips and stuff that didn't end up in the broadcast, little tidbits of knowledge and information that you might like. Please come back next Tuesday for an all-new episode of the Quidditas Factor. Thank you for listening.
Thanks so much for listening to the Quidditas Factor with Michael J. Arbouet. We'll catch you next time.